Hey guys, it's Dustin here from DG's Pro Tech, doing another issue of DG's TV here. We're into a neat job here. We like showing you some of the under the hood stuff that customers love to see. We're hearing lots of good feedback on our DG's TV's videos, so we're going to keep shooting them to you so you guys see lots of stuff that we get to do on a regular basis because it's pretty neat. Today, we have a Jeep Grand Cherokee in the shop that has a 3-liter V6. Now this 3-liter V6 was used, it is a Mercedes-Benz engine in conjunction with Via Moturi. So this is an engine, I believe they call the 06 347 engine. That's Mercedes term for it. That engine was used in the Jeep Grand Cherokees for a couple of years. It was also used for a number of years in the Mercedes-Benz Sprinters, as well as some Mercedes-Benz large luxury automobiles. Neat things about it. It is a common rail diesel engine. It is a 3-liter V6 displacement. Now do not confuse this with the one in the EcoDiesel. There are similarities, but they are not the same engine. It's running common rail. It is running modern emissions equipment like EGR and DPF, as well as some of the later models also run the urea system, the NOx reducing SCR system. This vehicle was in the shop for a very common repair that we see. Customers complain, vehicle comes in, check engine light, lack power, sometimes does excessive regens, lots of lights on the dash that they don't understand. And in the Chrysler platform, the picture is just looks like a lightning bolt inside a set of brackets and it's red. You see stuff like that, you definitely want to see us as a technician. So we'll get a couple shots of the inside of this because the intake manifold is out. There's lots of neat things you can see. And then I'm going to take you over to the bench to show you the intake manifold and show you what's really wrong with this vehicle and why it's here for repair. So like I said, the intake manifold, which is a V design, is out of this vehicle on the bench. We'll show it to you in a second. Some of the common rail things you'll see, you've got a common rail Bosch injection pump running off the end of a camshaft for its timing and where it picks up its drive from. You have a vacuum pump running off the other side. You can see wide open here, you can see your high pressure rails and the high pressure lines that run down to the actual injectors themselves. Other neat thing, you see a liquid to liquid heat exchanger, which is the oil cooler in this case. A lot of vehicles, gas or diesel, are running these styles of coolers and hiding them under the intake manifold. It's important to note these are hard to service, so maintenance comes into key to make sure these things don't plug up. We'll take you to the intake here and show you some other cool stuff. Okay, so I've partially assembled this, just kind of held it together on the bench to give you an idea of where that sat in the valley of the engine on this, guys. You have fresh air coming into your intake manifold after the turbocharger, of course. It then V's into these 6 ports, 3 on each side. You've got an EGR valve in the back. So the other port on the front here at the bottom, you see, this is the exhaust gas is going into the EGR cooler. So the EGR cooler sits really low in the valley, just above that oil cooler, and it then ports underneath up to this EGR valve, which controls the flow, which is then ported back through the intake itself. Of course, an EGR cooler, as we've seen on lots of diesel engines, we have exhaust going through. Hot exhaust in a diesel needs to be cooled, to be brought down to a temperature where it's effective to put it back into the intake, all for emissions. You'll see in this intake, this is where fresh air goes. And you see how dirty and messy this stuff is? That is a combination of unburnt fuel, which then builds up into carbon, and then the air bringing through it. We need to make sure we don't have any coolant from an EGR cooler leak or something like that, or any other liquid contaminants that are in there that are not just simply unburnt fuel. But very messy stuff here. With this intake, and I'm going to split it apart. A couple neat things to note. So we use this port because it's a little easy to understand. You have a motor in the middle. I'm going to flip this over. This is called the intake swirl control actuator. It's a really fancy way of saying we have an electric motor that simply does that. Get a good shot of that. It is a single motor that runs ports on both sides of the intake. So you see on my intake here, I have 1, 2, 3 main ports, and one of them has a butterfly valve. So this is our intake swirl control. Similar to what an older technician would understand as like a secondary and a carburetor, but a completely different purpose. The idea is at lower high RPM, we want to be able to pitch this open or close for 2 purposes. One purpose, we want to drag in more EGR, so we can create a Venturi effect here to drag in more EGR, it's exhaust gas recirculation gases. Second, at high RPM, when that turbo is spooling, we want to get the maximum amount of airflow into this engine so we can make peak efficiency and peak power. Problems. Talked about the carbon. Clearly, this truck had, or Jeep had, a carbon issue. This is just a simple 12-volt electric motor. You ever had a power window motor frozen in the winter? Same idea when this gets plugged full of carbon. It doesn't want to move these ports correctly. If these ports don't move correctly, the computer will pick up on that and eventually set a check engine light code that will throw the vehicle into a lack of power. When that happens, you want to get it fixed as soon as possible. If you wait, the longer it burns inefficiently, more carbon we build up. The more carbon we build up, this snowballs very quickly. As technicians, it is our job to verify. Is the problem because the motor itself is not strong enough and the linkages in the ports are fine and clear and it's just a simple motor failure, which happens commonly? Is it a problem like this one is, where the linkages are completely carboned up? Is it simply a problem where the linkages popped apart? And this stuff, again, you see how complicated and varied this is? It is a in-depth repair even for diagnosis. So it's something, again, you don't want to leave it. Don't be worried about the cost. Make sure we get it diagnosed correctly. The motor is a fairly simple install. If it's just a motor and that's all it needs, we're not going to have these carbon buildup issues. Other issues we have seen, these linkages are all made of plastic. There are updated parts that can be purchased online, not from Chrysler or Mercedes or any other source, but online they do make metal ones. We have an actual metal bushing rather than plastic. We've seen this port wear out, this port wear out, this port wear out, where it's been binding so long it wears with the plastic. We've simply seen the motor break. We've seen the linkages popped out, like I said. But the trick is, and in this case, unfortunately, this customer's in a case where both of those ports, until we actually pulled them open and knocked a whole bunch of the heavy carbon out, both these intake manifold ports will then have to be replaced as an assembly. The motor itself has potentially got some electrical wear in it because it's been pushing on that carbon for a while and binding. That motor's not as strong as it used to be. Now we're going to need a motor as well. This is an extreme case. It's neat to show our customers that. It's a very unique engine. It shares a lot of common properties with some of the replacement Mercedes engines that have come after it. They're sister engines. So the newer Mercedes Sprinter, as well as now no longer in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, but in other vehicles that Mercedes has had, this is an engine that is not going to go away because it does work very well for it is. So neat stuff. If you have any questions, if you have a concern, even if just a simple light comes on the dash, we are only a phone call or a Facebook message or a text message away. Give us a call. Good information, everything you guys can give you to make sure that you are an informed customer, and that is the name of the game. So I think we'll call that it for this one. Give us a call anytime at DG's ProTech, 519-277-8721. Anything automotive, anything diesel related, we're here to help. Thanks, guys.